story to another speaker who will focus on the Georgian case, rather the role of Georgian Orthodox Church in the Georgia state organization.
Thank you very much, Lita. Hello, everyone. Thanks for having this conference. I'll present. My name is Christina, and I'm presenting now this paper, which is part of the research held between November 2015 and June 2016. There was a qualitative research held, and there were political elites, members of the political elites, the members of the clergy, the Orthodox Christian Church in Georgia, and experts working on this topic were interviewed. The topic of my research and my research interests were to discover and analyze the formal and informal ties as well between the church, Georgian Orthodox Church, and the government of Georgia, the influence the Georgian Orthodox Church has on internal politics, and the influence Georgian Orthodox Church has on European integration process of the country. This research project was part of the ACM rather larger project about religion, society, and politics in Georgia, and the final findings will be presented in November on the ACM conference. First of all, to tell where we stand now in Georgia in terms of the Georgian Orthodox Church having an influence on the society. Church is a very strong institution which was formed after the independent Georgia. After the Georgian independence in the 90s, it relatively grew to enlarge its influence, and we can see from this that among all the social or political institutions, Georgian Orthodox Church has highest trust. It's 89%, while the political parties have 60% of trust, and the government itself, with the cabinet ministers, has 36% of trust, and parliament 34% respectively. While this was the IRI poll, the NDI poll conducted on April 2015 shows the relatively similar tendencies, showing that there is only in total 2% of population who think that who rate the performance of the Georgian Orthodox Church as an institution rather badly or very badly. To stand also to shape out the basis of the state-church relations in Georgia, we should mention 2002 constitutional agreement, which was signed by Georgia and the Patriarch Julius II. The Julius II is the head of the Georgian Orthodox Church from 1978. So he both served during the Soviet Union, and then he stayed after the gaining the independence. While there are several topics which this constitutional agreement touched upon, for example, that the church is free from taxes, church has the influence on the educational system, it can somehow express its opinion on the educational process in Georgia in general, and also there is a very interesting inter-independency clause in this agreement, where which means that both church and state, they are independent from each other, while at the same time they're interdependent. So they're in some sense they are dependent on each other. So they have this. This is the symphonia is the word for that historical to describe the historical relationship between the state and the church in the coming from the Byzantine, starting from the Byzantine Empire until nowadays. And all of the Orthodox, in all of the states were, for example, in Russia, in Serbia, and Greek is the prime example, state and church has a very strong and, how to say, this interdependency is all present everywhere. And Georgia is no exception amongst. Since 2002, and also in this agreement, we will see the government put the clause where it should compensate all the damages Soviet Union caused the Georgian church. While those, how to say, those amount of the money, the amount of the damage was never ever measured, Georgian government still continued to pay the annual, how to say, the transferred money annually from the Georgian budget to the Georgian Orthodox Church. This one of the research shows that this is from since 2002. This is totally 250 million Georgian lari in total, and there's very interesting shift in 2009. While in 2008 the financing was 9 million lari. In 2009 it became 25 million lari, and it stayed so until nowadays. This is the period when Saakashvili was in charge, so there was a period of Saakashvili's government. UNM was ruling party, and 2008 was those periods that in relation to all of the street protests against Saakashvili, then the election, and then the 2008 war, respectively. There is also we should also, how to say, mention that there is a deep historical experience of government and both political parties and elites using Georgian Orthodox Church to legitimize their power. So in all the critical moments, political elites were asking Orthodox Patriarch itself and all other representatives maybe to support especially and specifically their political party or their, how to say, ruling party or opposition. Patriarch mostly stayed neutral, but in some certain cases he expressed his opinion. While in 2000, we should also discuss, when we're talking about on church's influence on the internal politics, we should also discuss the 2012 election, on which Orthodox Church activity was very high. There were sermons held and speeches from them in the church against or pro certain political parties. The priests were attending the political rallies. This was very high activity, although the official representative of the church, which is the synod, the council of all the archbishops, expressed the opinion and expressed its view that all those, how to say, the activities by other priests were not official position of the church. So, church still stayed neutral, although many of the representatives, certain representatives of the Georgian Orthodox Church played an active role in the pre-election campaign, and this certainly had some effect on the population. So this is one of the charts which shows that it could have an effect on the election results. While asked in March 2016 if party leader expressed a critical opinion about Georgian Orthodox Church, would you vote for him or not? 74% of the population, not population, the 74% of the respondents, the interviewed respondents, answered that they will not vote for such kind of party. And only 10% said that they would vote for such kind of party. But the very interesting point, and how to say, decisive point between the Orthodox Church's influence on internal politics was kind of started to diminish was that 2013, this rally, I think the previous presenter also mentioned, against on the International Day against Homophobia, when several clerics and mobilized the mob, and there were attempts of physically attacking those demonstrants, and this caused very reaction in the civil society as well, and as well in the population. In the meantime, there was a very fierce protest against anti-discrimination law, which was one of the core requirements before ratifying Visa Liberation Action Plan. In this case, if we are talking about the European integration process, the government disregarded the opinion of the Georgian Orthodox Church, which was against the anti-discrimination law, and still passed the law. After that, the law was still at least accepted by the government. The most important, all the important documents of the Georgian state foreign policy or security policy, they express an idea that Georgia is an integral part of the Europe, and we should see in the European values and traditions and aspires to achieve full-fledged integration into European political, economic and security system. This is our expressed goal to achieve the integration in the European security system, while you were talking about the vertical from bottom up to down, bottom, influence approach. This also showed that maybe that vertical approach worked, and now also population wants to join the EU because it's sometimes received that the European choice is the choice of the Georgian political and intellectual elites, and not the choice of the Georgian population. And there are still doubts about the European integration process in the population. While in the church, we should see that the church also doesn't have a very strong position on that. This is briefly where we stand with the European Union. The relationship started in 1996, and it ended, the milestone event was in 2014 when we signed the association agreement. European Union is a major trade partner for Georgia, and it's the expressed and chosen path that Georgian state should follow the European integration way. Although this is an expert from the interview I held with one of the archbishops in church, he expressed that as far as the European association goes, they cooperate and they don't have anything against it. We have common Christian basis, he says that. So this is the Christianity is their, all the, not only Orthodox Church, but also the whole population claims that our Christianity, our Orthodox Christianity makes us European. That's the core value and core, basis. That's why we are European. And so we have to cooperate in this sphere. But if Europe loses those values and other systems get through, as they call the liberal values, we won't cooperate in this sphere. This is not this is a widespread opinion. It's not only the opinion of this certain archbishop. It's a widespread opinion in the church, in the one segment of the church, and also in the population that there are some liberal values that gay marriage will be legalized, or that some immoral things will be flow from Europe to Georgia. But to somehow to neutralize that, our claim and Archbishop's claim that our Christianity makes us very European, I should I should show you the World Value Survey by Betzel. The map where, for example, here, if you see, if it's clear, we are in the Orthodox, we are in the group of Orthodox countries, very below, near Armenia and Georgia. So culturally speaking, we are quite far from the Catholic Europe and Protestant Europe, and our Orthodoxy, let's say, our Christianity makes the way of our Christianity makes us makes us not very closer to those core European states, which we Europe 27, which we so gladly want to join, but it's also how distance us from them. But we should mention that I mentioned that the Georgian Orthodox Church. My last points will be that there were high officials they thought that communicating the positive aspects of the European integration to the Patriarch before signing the association agreement was important, because Georgian Orthodox Church is a very influential social institution. Also, there is a project by Centre for Development and Democracy, and it involved until then 1,700 priests, which were trained and educated about the benefits of the European association, what it will bring. This project still continues now, but as we can see that in the meanwhile, in the time that this project is initiated in the church, so church is one of the partners in this project with one of the NGO. The Patriarch attends the very conservative and very, marginal event, the World Congress of Families, and express its hope that the May 17, which is the day of against homophobia, the Georgian Patriarch turned it to the day of celebration of the family holiness. So there were human rights and the very conservative, values. So to sum up, I think I don't have the time. The religious and cultural experience and choices are both determinant and sometimes deterrent factors of the European integration on our way to the European integration process. But as my research showed, and I would sum up that. While Georgian Orthodox Church's influence on internal politics is is high, not to say very high, its influence on the foreign policy choices can be described as marginal and not. So the state always communicates their decision while it's about the internal politics. But when it comes to the very fundamental issues, and those are the issues of the politics and foreign policy and geopolitics, state choose to be independent and to disagree sometimes with the church. Thank you very much.